What's up, everybody? I just wanted to come through, say hey. I've really been praying and thinking about the recent events in our country and my thoughts. What were my thoughts and why did they matter and do they matter? And so I know I'm probably not the only one. And so I wanted to just encourage some people with not only joining together with my thoughts and potentially add to someone else's thoughts, that we potentially can make a difference together. And so I wanted to share some of the things that the Lord was sharing with me. And I think why each individual's voice matters is because each one of us is different in our own way. And so I want to speak from the position of coming from a person with this skin color who believes in the Lord Almighty, and what we with this skin color and as believers and as Christians, what should our response be to such atrocities that we've witnessed in this past week? And not just in this past week, but as it's coming to the surface, what should our response be? And so I've been in prayer a lot about this and whether or not our voice matters. And so I want to just share some things with you today. And I think now is the time for a higher revelation from the body of Christ, a higher revelation from white folks as it relates to the nation's history, where we've come from, and then looking forward to where we are going as a nation. It's one thing to sit back as a Christian. It's one thing to sit back as a white person and be fine within yourself and saying, I love everyone. I love everyone. Everyone's the same. I don't see differences. I don't see issues. And that's one place. And love is a foundation. And love is a must. And love is a necessity. And love is also part of the response that the church has preached over the last 60 years since Jim Crow, since the legislative lifting of segregation. The issue is that's not enough in this day and age for us as both white people, Christians, and in all honesty, humans, to allow ourselves to think that our obligation ends at just an internal I love everyone attitude. Because unfortunately, the nation in which we live in, which is the best nation in the world, one nation under God, is a nation that has a history and has a past. And whether or not you were born in that time, have experienced that time directly, or are an ancestor and have experienced privilege of that, or the horrendous torture and the pain that comes from the history of that. Whatever color skin that the Lord allowed you to be born in is what hand you've been dealt and what voice you've been given. And the nation that we find ourselves in, it is time for us as Christians, as white folks specifically, to rise up to a higher revelation. You just believing that I love everyone will solve an issue in the nation's country is just step one. So if that's where you at, I do want to congratulate you because that is step one. We are not in the 60s, 40s, 50s, 30s, and back in the 1800s where that hadn't even been accomplished. But here we are today. So God is good. We are past step one. Now I call and urge us to move on beyond step one. What do I mean? In the Bible, specifically in Galatians 2 and 3, bear, endure, carry one another's burdens and troublesome moral faults, and in this way fulfill and observe perfectly the law of Christ. For if any of you think that to be somebody too important to consent or carry or shoulder another's load, when you are no one of superiority except in your own estimation, you deceive, delude, and cheat your own self. What does that mean? Bear one another's burden. So the fact that you say that you love me or that we love someone else and yet look past the burden that has been laid on an entire group of people. And when I speak of that, I speak on the least of them to the greatest of them. I'm speaking on black folks. I'm speaking regarding Jews. I'm speaking regarding women. I'm speaking regarding anyone that is experiencing any sort of discrimination based on how they were born. We are called as the body of Christ to bear one another's burden. A pastor I heard recently mentioned that love is the first step and love is where we need to be. And then what comes after that should be what's next. And so I challenge us, what is after that? What are we doing after that? Are we really bearing one another's burden, or do we stand by silently as that same spirit of hatred and torture and racism and genocide rises up in the country that is the greatest country in this world? What do you do? That is what I challenge you with, because if you claim to be a Christian, if Jesus himself would have taken the attitude of silence and no action because it didn't apply to him, we would not have the blood and we would not have the victory as we sit here today. And so what boils on the inside of me is that every time one of these type of instances occur, as a nation, we should be appalled. Anytime someone is discriminated because of how they were born, we should be appalled. Why? Because not only on an individual level, it's shameful, but it takes us backwards when we as a nation should be evolving and going forward. And as a body of Christ, fundamentally, we were created to bear one another's burdens. That's one. That is my challenge. That if you are a white person that thinks that it is enough just not to hate somebody, it's not enough. We are called to bear one another's burden. 2, the Bible talks about in Matthew 7:9-11, it talks about if you as an earthly parent would not give your child a stone as a gift, if you were to be asked for a fish, would you give them a serpent? In essence, what are you passing down as a legacy to your children? Are you passing down a legacy of passism? Are you passing down a legacy of it's someone else's fault? Or have you adopted, I wasn't there, it's not me, I love everybody, I don't know what the problem is? Are you passing down any of the above? I call you to question, what are you passing down in your heart? It's time for higher thinking, higher revelation, higher steps of action, because this nation is the greatest. We are a people that are bonded together by the blood, bonded together by the love, and bonded together by a history. Yes, horrible. Parts of it are horrible, but we are a great nation. Bear one another's burden. What legacy are you passing down to your children? Are you handing them a stone or a serpent? And you don't even realize it. And finally, I bring to you another call of action. If we think about during Jim Crow and segregation, there were sit-ins, there were strategies, there were things that people did where they joined together to come against oppression. And they were trying to change laws. And thankfully, they never stopped. Thankfully, they kept speaking out. Thankfully, they came up with plans. They would strategize and set up sit-ins where they would come to counters together, all colors, and sit in to carry each other's burden. They would be spit in the faces. People were spit as they sat there. They were smacked, they were beaten, they were come against by the police, whatever it took to make that statement. I pray and I thank God we are not even in that place now. And yet, if we were, would you be organizing a sit-in? What's our obligation as Christians? Are you planning a sit-in? Are you even contemplating what it feels like to be a family of a different color? That when people are getting killed by the police, or people are in the streets shouting things regarding Nazis and killing Jews and killing anyone, do you contemplate for a second what those parents have to explain to their children at night? Do you contemplate the conversation that mothers and fathers have to have to their black children regarding how to carry themselves around police just in case something could happen to them? Conversations you as a white person would never have to have. I challenge you that if you are a Christian, that is the exact conversations that you need to be willing to have and understand and take on as part of that burden. And although we don't need to organize sit-ins today, I challenge you and I bring about the idea that yes, we do. What type of sit-in do you have going on in your life? What type of legacy are we passing to our children? That we stand by and say, yes, we've overcome this, and oh, it's not a big deal now, but we will allow ourselves to be pulled back by small-minded cowards? Shameful. And for us to say that love is enough. Love in its truest form will reciprocate and will transpose one another's burdens and carry them and stand side by side with them and say, you know what, I may not understand, and man, but help me. What can I do? Speak out. Use the voice you've been given. That is my challenge. Because although love is elementary and fundamental, If we are going to go where God has this nation to go as a people of the best place in the world, we have got to get past this step one of I love everyone and I have nothing to do with this. There is only one side. And so to think that you can pick a side, or maybe you've been born to a particular side and you're comfortable where you are, I challenge you as a Christian, that is not a place to stay. I challenge you to come to the next level. Think about your legacy. Think about where you're at and where God may be calling you to be. And each one of us has a voice in a different way. And so I challenge you to examine that. What is your voice? What is the sit-in? Where can you go? What can you say? And how can you truly show love? Not just give mouth service and lip service to the concept of love, but truly, truly love one another. Bear one another's burdens. I'm sorry I got worked up. I hope y'all feel me. I want to call us to a higher place, a higher level. As Christians, we are called to a higher level than just giving lip service to being okay with just we love everybody. We need to stand with whomever you see daily. Let them know I stand with you. I love y'all. And I know God has so much in store for us. And part of it is working through this. And part of it is speaking the truth in love. So I hope y'all feel me. Hope you feel my spirit. That's all I got. I'm out. I love y'all. Peace.